Well, welcome back to The Real Story with Jeanne Ives. I'm on a Zoom call right now with two very interesting individuals. They're from Coles County, Illinois. One of them is a man named James DiNaso. The other is his lawyer, Todd Reardon. And James confronted Governor Pritzker at a campaign stop, believe it or not, a campaign stop held in a public library just recently. And so we're going to talk about what happened with James. We're going to talk about his situation. And so gentlemen, welcome to the program. Welcome to The Real Story with Jeanne Ives.
Thanks for having us. Thank
yes.
you, Jeanne.
Well, James, let's start with you. Tell us exactly when this occurred, where this occurred, what caused you to go to this event, how did you find out about it? Just give us this kind of the setup to what happened in Coles County.
So I believe it was August 25th, I believe. I'm not exactly positive, but I believe it was August 25th. It was at our public library here in town. I'm a local business owner. I've owned a strength and conditioning and fitness training facility for the past 32 years. And I was greatly affected by the executive orders and the COVID shutdowns that occurred across the state due to president, that's not right.
Wannabe.
Governor Pritzker executive order. And so it hurt me quite a bit financially. And, at first it was 2 weeks to stop the curve. And I said, okay, that's fine. I want to be a good citizen. I want to play my part in curbing this thing and trying to control this COVID outbreak. The 2 weeks turned into a month turned into 2 months, 3 months. It just went on and on. He kept renewing his executive orders. Well, I found out that
we're still under an executive order, by the way. We're still under an executive order. Just want to make sure you know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, they never ended, I guess. Yeah. But I found out and saw some documentation that he actually worked with the Illinois Department of Health to keep his hotel gyms and fitness rooms in the gym, in his hotels open. So here he's closing my business down and saying my business essentially is non-essential and not safe to keep open, even though we have cleaning protocols and we do all those things every day. But yet his hotel fitness rooms are okay. And I don't know if anyone knows anything about the fitness industry at all, but hotel fitness rooms are some of the most dirtiest and germ infected in the industry. It's just a fact. They don't get cleaned like the rooms get cleaned. And so I just thought that was extremely unfair. And when I heard he was coming to town and that the library is literally located hundreds of feet away from my business, I said, you know what? I'm going to go down there and tell the governor that, I wasn't real happy about it and I was going to redress that issue with him, which I have a constitutional right to do. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I did.
Okay. So we're going to roll two different videos from two different angles of what happened at this event when you confronted the governor about him shutting down your gym, but keeping his gyms in his Hyatt hotels open. I want people, when they're looking at this, to pay attention. Listen to what the governor says at the end. Of course, we're going to have this caption so you can read it as well. But also look at the backdrop. He's in a public library, and in the back of where he's speaking, he has his campaign step and repeat signage up. And so this was really a campaign event in a public library, which I think is a faux pas. I think that's illegal, personally. But go ahead. We're going to roll the tape. This is tape one. You'll see it twice.
You work in education. Some of you are students who are getting your degrees here in the state of Illinois. Some of you are just working every day to support your families, to support your community, and just standing up for each other.
You shut down my gym during COVID, and you kept your hotel.
There's always somebody, right?
Okay, actually, I think that's pretty clear. I think we saw what we need to see. So, again, I mean, you, James, you spoke up to be, especially at the right time, in my opinion. He had just finished saying, you're out there working every day for your families, when the truth is he refused to let people work for their families. This got very personal to you. And so tell us what we saw there. We saw a bigger man come away from the front all the way to you. What happened in that commotion there?
Well, I want to point out too, I began, I left to go to the library about an hour and 15 minutes before the event started. I wanted to get there early, and I wanted to get in the front row because I wanted the governor not to dismiss me. I wanted to be able to tell the governor, redress my grievance with him, and let him know that, you know, he hurt me, and he hurt a lot of my friends in the fitness business. I have some friends that literally went bankrupt. They wound up getting divorced over it. They've lost their businesses. Now, thankfully, that didn't happen to me. I was able to weather the storm there, but it greatly hurt me financially. So when I went there, initially, I was actually sitting in the second row, and I was minding my own business. I took my seat. I said nothing to anyone. And what happened was someone in the event must have told the head of the Democratic chair of Coles County that I was there. I don't know why. And he came up to me and said, "You need to leave. You're not a Democrat." And I said, "That's right. I'm not. I'm not. I'm an independent. I vote for who I feel is best to do the job." He says, "Well, this is a closed event for Democrats." I said, "No, it's not. It's an open event. I saw your Facebook invitation inviting the public. I also saw the invitation that you put out in the public newspaper, our local paper, that you wanted the public to show up. So I'm here." I said, "Why are you discriminating against me?" He said, "We're not discriminating against you." I said, "Yes, you are." He said, "You need to leave." I said, "Well, I'm not leaving. This is a public library. My taxes go for this. I'm staying." So he left. And then one of Pritzker's team came over and said, "You need to leave." And I said, "No, I don't need to leave." And I said, "Are you from Coles County?" He said, "No." I said, "Are you a taxpayer, Coles County?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, I am. And this is my public library too. And I have every right to be here, just like all the rest of these people." I said, "You're discriminating against me." Now, this is before I said anything. This is 45 minutes before the event even started. So they targeted me. They wanted a sterile environment. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't causing any trouble to anyone. I wasn't speaking to anyone. And after he addressed me, he said, "Well, I'm going to find someone that's going to get you out." And I said, "Okay, fine. Do whatever you need to do." So I was simply just going through the motions, sitting there, waiting for the governor to come on. And that's when I started to get harassed by the crowd. The lady sitting next to me, which you will see in the video that has a mask on, started saying to me, "You must be a real terrible person if they want you to leave. You must be awful. You must be this. You must be that." And the only thing I said was, I said, "You don't even know me, ma'am." I said, "You have no right to say any of that stuff to me. You don't even know who I am." And quite frankly, I didn't even know her. And a few other people were saying things, and I just sat there and I said nothing. And I waited for the governor to come, and eventually he did come in, and I was going to be respectful. I was going to wait till he was done talking. Hopefully they were going to have a question and answer, and I was going to address him then. However, I started getting a little angry at the way I was being treated, and then I couldn't stand listening to the speech, because when he got there, he started talking about working families and how he's working for all of us working families. And I said, "Wait a minute. In my mind, you're not helping me, and I'm a working family. You have a double standard. You kept your gyms open." And that's when I decided to stand up after what he just said in his speech. So I did stand up. I said what I wanted to say, and I was going to leave. And that's when everything unfolded. And, everything happened so fast. The thing I remember the most, though, was the larger gentleman coming from several rows in front, which, by the way, I was in the second row, and what they purposely did to shut me up was they started putting chairs in front of me and brought the rows all the way up front. So they stacked rows in front of me to try to isolate me, and I wouldn't leave. So when the event started, he came down, this guy came down from the front, and he was charging at me. And you could see, if you look at my position, he charges me head on. I step him. I simply just stepped out of the way, but I was still addressing the governor, still looking at the governor. Obviously, I saw him coming because he's so large and blocked the view for a few seconds. I just stepped aside, and he kind of fell over. And then I said what I had to say. I was on my way out, and yet he turns, and then he starts yelling at me as I'm leaving, and I'm still addressing the governor, and then sticks his hand out. And as I'm stepping back, I felt something hit me on the shoulder, kind of spun me around a little bit, not all the way, and I left. And then I remember looking at him and saying, "Don't ever touch me. Don't ever touch me." And you can hear Pritzker's own staff saying, "No, hands off, hands off. We don't do hands on." So they knew he was getting violent with me, and so I don't know what right he thought he had to come down from 5 rows ahead of me to try to strike at me. He was coming at me aggressively the first time, and I thought, just as I sidestepped and left, it was probably a good time to get out of there. So I left after the incident. I walked completely off the library grounds. I spoke to nobody until I crossed the street. There was a couple people I knew across the street that asked me what happened. And during this time, Pritzker's security team followed me, got in their vehicles, and were following me around town. So all for just speaking up and exercising my First Amendment right. And I think anybody should be able to exercise the right, whether you're in agreement with them or not. That's a campaign stop, so in a public library. So that's how I saw it. So,
and let's be clear, I've met James probably 2.5 years ago, maybe 3. James is a vocal critic of our local county board, which at that time was 11-1 Republican. And every executive officer in the county who also attends those county board meetings that he criticizes when they do something wrong was all Republican. So James is in the true sense, a person who will express his opinions and feelings is what you should have in a democracy. We shouldn't all
regardless of party. Regardless of party, James is going to speak up and
do the right thing and say what he wants to say, and that's the heart of the First Amendment and the heart of a democracy. Not everybody's going to agree with you. You got to give everybody a chance to say what they want to say. It shouldn't be all the leader. So
here there's a lot of different ways to deal with people who are raising a ruckus at a public event, which some would say that you were out of line by speaking up in the way that you did. But it's certainly not having the state's attorney's personal lawyer, who apparently that big person is. Is that correct? So the big person who was at the JB Pritzker Public Library political event, again, a problem, was actually the state's attorney's personal lawyer. And instead, JB should have just stopped, addressed your question, had a conversation, or said, "You know what, I would like to talk with you. I'm happy to talk to you about that." But the fact that he let the mayhem continue, and then his only comment at the end there was, "Well, there's always somebody in the crowd." I mean, whoa, that is not what you expect from a leader, addressing concerns from people. And I've had people have outbursts at events. We've never ever handled it like that. We've respectfully engaged them in a conversation that they need to get it off their chest and have to have a conversation with. So James, was there anybody that you could go to? They didn't just shut down your gyms. Tell the audience what they did you're also a landlord, so you have apartments above your gym. And this was another revenue stream that the governor shut down needlessly. Is that correct?
Yeah, getting back to what Todd said about addressing the local government, we had property taxes due, so the governor put in a moratorium on rents, or the CDC, and they basically said you don't have to pay your rent if you're a tenant. Well, that's all fine. But if you're going to do that, then the landlords shouldn't have to pay their mortgages, and the banks shouldn't have to call notes and do all these things. You're supposed to give, forgiveness and all these other things that should go along with this. But no, the county demanded that while I was shut down, my income generating property was not making money of no fault of my own. It wasn't because I couldn't rent out my rental property or I couldn't go to work in the morning. It was all by government edict. And one of the issues I have with my local government was you shouldn't be charging me those months' property taxes if I can't generate the revenue to pay the tax. They said, nope, that's just the way it is. So that was one of the issues I have with the local government. JB, though, and the governor, he went ahead and put that, moratorium on rents. And so I wasn't getting my rental income. I was not receiving my income from my day-to-day fitness business. And I also have another business called Practical Kinesiology Company where we travel around the country. We train law enforcement. Well, the attitude at the time was defund the police and all these things that are going on. Well, that's a fitness-related business too, because I have to be up close and personal with people to work with them and coach them. That business was shut down too. So all three of my income streams were completely shut down. So I had nothing. I had no income coming in, and so when someone does that to you and you feel it, I'm not a billionaire like he is, okay? I can't sit back and not go to work today and expect to pay my taxes and my mortgage and my bills. So, and I feel very blessed and fortunate that I came out of this still intact. I feel really bad and worse and angry for those good friends of mine that I've known after being in the fitness business for 35 years that didn't make it. And I mean, I've talked to these people, they're good friends of mine. And I've talked to grown men crying saying, they're taking my gym. I'm losing all my equipment. The bank is foreclosing on my mortgage. My wife is divorcing. I mean, I had to listen to stuff all of no fault of their own. And for him to come down here and think that he can go to a public place and make statements like he's for working families and people like me shouldn't have a chance to redress that is just to me abhorrent. And so I was not going to be silent. And I went there and I expressed my First Amendment right, and I would defend anyone's right, whether I agreed with them or didn't agree with them, to express their First Amendment right to redress their government for grievances. And I did it peacefully. There was no reason for any of those people to lay hands on me like they did. And I'm not one to ever go and file a lawsuit or sue people over some, personal issues like that. I've never done that before, but I started thinking about it. I said, you know what? Somebody's got to speak up and set the precedent. So at this
point, you have filed a lawsuit against the gentleman, or no? What are you up to? No.
We have not filed anything yet. He did file a local police report, and they handled it appropriately. Following up on James's issues, we do have eminent domain in the Constitution, and it is allowed. But I think what his big complaint was there, and I understand it, being a small business owner myself, if you're going to shut someone down and use government to basically thwart your opportunity, you're using eminent domain powers, but without fair compensation. Mm-hmm. And there was, to my knowledge, there has been some relief later for some landlords and stuff like that. But at the time that he was shut down, the local taxing authority, property taxes were coming due. There was no, forbearance or forgiveness or, it's okay, we're going to give you 6 months to recoup. So the government locally and state level was using eminent domain powers without any of the fair compensation. And James has it right. I've seen him at county board meetings, at other political venues, speaking his mind. And that's what's scary when we shut down people speaking their mind. And what really scared me of the Pritzker incident, it reminded me more of a Trump event, where you don't like the hecklers, so you beat them up, you rough them up and encourage it. And I expected more from people who claim to be and believe in civil liberties, which Donald Trump doesn't. Let's just get it out there. He's a narcissist, fascist.
Well, we all have our opinions, but on that one, on that case, let's get back to, has anybody from the governor's event that day, including the person who laid hands on you, and multiple people actually did, as you can see in that video, Has there been any apology, any outreach from the governor's office about this incident? Any discussion about were you able to get everything that you're supposed to be getting from the American Recovery Act and everything else? Has there been any outreach?
No, there's been no outreach from the governor's office.
How about the
all.
local Coles County Democrat Party? Have they explained themselves? Have they apologized for the behavior?
No, I haven't heard anything from them. And in fairness too, I have been contacted many months after the COVID thing subsided that there was some monies out there available locally. I did apply for some of those and got some of those, but it was, I could have used them during the time. I did recover some of it. So in all fairness and full disclosure, I want to say that. But that was by the outreach from that was from a local organization that said, hey, these things are available. Do you want us to help you try to do this? And they were trying to help the local business owners out of the city is kind of through the city of Charleston too. They kind of facilitated that. And I was very thankful that some of our local government officials from the city were very kind in trying to help out some of the business owners that got hit pretty hard. So I do appreciate that. I just
right,
think
but still,
that,
I think, but most people they're panicked. I talked to a number of business owners. You can go back to my podcasts in 2020, my discussions with a number of business owners, restaurant owners, literally people almost crying on my discussions with them because they have no idea if money's coming. They have no idea when the money's coming. All they have is a mountain of bills, food that's rotting in the freezers that they're going to have to throw out, thousands of dollars that they owe vendors for services, nothing coming in, no way to pay their own personal bills, let alone their business bills. It was a very serious situation. And the problem here is just the willy-nilly way that the law was applied, and then it was applied for so long, painstakingly long. Like literally to think that you can go to the grocery store, but you cannot go to a gym, to think that you can go get your marijuana, but you cannot go to church. I mean, we can't forget what the government did to us because they can never do this again. Never. They cannot do this to people. It's just
look
uncalled
at what they did
for.
by prioritizing businesses, right? If you're Walmart, you're allowed to sell electronics and food, but if you're an electronics only store, because you don't sell food, you couldn't sell your electronics. So you gave the largest corporations
Yes.
in a free pass, which they did. The Walmarts,
You let
the
Amazon
Meijers,
employees, work in their warehouse, but nobody else could work in their own individual store.
well, and I just want to say too, I read up on this stuff. There are still literally, I believe it's over 100,000 businesses that still haven't opened up post-pandemic from the lockdowns. And you read some figures are higher. Some say at one point I was reading it was 250,000. So you've got literally small business owners that are the drivers of employment in the state. Everyone thinks it's just the Boeings or the big corporations that come here, but no, small business employs more people than all those corporations. And so when you start handicapping your tax base and your employer base, you're cutting your nose to spite your face. And so, I had to take a real serious look at Illinois because I'm thinking, okay, so what happens in the future now? So we have another pandemic. They're going to shut us down again. I can't survive two of these. There's no way. Barely survived one, and felt fortunate enough to do that. So when you talk about what the future lies, is it any wonder that businesses are wanting to leave Illinois or that businesses won't come here? Because I talk to my friends in the fitness business, they don't want to come here. There's people like, oh, I want to move to Chicago. I heard it's a great place. I said, Chicago is a great place and Illinois has great people, but you really got to watch the government. It's overregulated. You get all these things going on. And then the thing for me, though, that brought me to this event, because normally I don't think I would have even gone to the event, wasted my time. But the fact that he had his hotel fitness rooms open and closed me down tells me he's not interested in the science, because I had to sit there and listen to him while I was shut down saying we need to follow the science and all this. Well, what science says that the COVID, virus won't infect you at one of his hotel fitness rooms, but it'll infect you at my place. That tells me that you're not following the science, that it's favoritism, and that he can personally profit by keeping his hotel chains open and allowing his members or his patrons to use their fitness room, but he's going to penalize me for my people to use my facility. And let me tell you something, as someone in the fitness business, and this is not spoken up enough, when I did start my business back up and my people came back to me, many of them, their mental state was very unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
They were telling me how depressed they were during the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
They gained a bunch of weight. Their health suffered. Their health suffered more for not coming in on a regular basis and exercising. They suffered in that way more than they ever did from COVID. And a lot of them didn't get COVID. Some of them did get COVID. But the fact that they weren't allowed to live their lives the way they should have affected them more negatively, both physically and psychologically, than it ever did when, that I would rather take the risk and live my life. And I know sometimes you do it for the public good, than have to suffer by edict and say, no, you're never leaving your house. You're not going to go here, but you can go here. That's not science to me. And I think it's wrong. And when you start doing that, you're basically dividing the people that you deem as essential and the people you deem as not essential. Well, who gets to make that decision? The governor, maybe for 30 days. But
Not in America. Not in America. This is America. This is not a tyranny. But they were treated that way.
I feel like I'm a victim of that. And I know, again, I'm blessed. I'm still in business today. The people that I really feel bad for, and the reason that I'm making an issue out of this, is for the people who couldn't open again, and for the small business owners now that are, on food stamps, literally, and have to scrounge for now, and still are under the hook of their debt they had prior to closing. I mean, it's horrible. Jeannie, it's terrible.
It's
just terrible.
Well, and go ahead, Todd.
You made a question earlier. The person who showed the most class at that Pritzker event was the young lady at the door telling him not to put hands on people. Out of all those people in the crowd, only one person had the class and decency to honor the Constitution, and that's free speech. Even with people you don't agree with, they have a right to speak. And so whoever that young lady is, she deserves kudos in my opinion. But other than that, there's been no outreach. Yeah,
she showed more class, and she was part of, I believe, part of the governor's staff, and she just asked me to leave, and I was if you watch the tape, it's clear. I just addressed that one issue with him. I was going to say what I was going to say, and actually I was not forced out of there. I was actually walking on my own, and then was being, someone grabbed my arm. A few people were kind of pushing me, but I was heading that way anyway. I just wanted to redress my grievance and get out of there and leave. I wasn't there to totally ruin the event or cause any harm to anybody. That's all I wanted to do. And here I am on my way out. This guy comes running down and wants to get physical with me, and so here we are today.
Well, you're one of those people who played by the rules too the entire time. You didn't open up your gym and go rogue and blacken out your windows and give people a secret key card to the back door or anything like that, which other people did. Obviously, other gyms did. Just kind of like say, forget it. We're just going to do what we're going to have to do. You're an upstanding citizen, and I thank you so much. Thank you so much, James, for coming on the podcast, sharing the story. We are thankful for you just standing up. The hypocrisy has got to end. I don't care if it's on whose side of the aisle it's on, Republican or Democrat. I'm totally done with it. I mean, I still think it's egregious that he tried to get a $330,000 property tax break by pulling the toilets out of his second mansion. Who does that? Nobody else does that. Nobody even thinks to do that. Nobody has a contractor who they can pay to pull out 6 toilets from one place or has 6 bathrooms, and yet he did it. So, I mean, I think that's what bothers most people, and both sides of the aisles bothers people more than anything, is when the politicians live at a different standard than they do. It is shameful. It is shameful.
And I got one more thing to add, if I could, Jeanne.
Yes.
The hypocrisy about this is during the COVID shutdown, one of my good friends, I won't say his name, he's a fitness trainer. He works up north in the greater Chicago area. He happened to travel out of state to Wisconsin during COVID. I don't know if he had family up there or whatever. He was actually up there, actually ran into the governor at a sports bar in Wisconsin, and the governor was drinking a beer and eating at this restaurant at the very same time the governor closed the restaurants in Illinois. And this, by the way, this person actually lost his job. And so, again, the hypocrisy and the background that went into my thinking behind saying what I did far extends beyond the story that I can tell in an hour here. It's just, I just keep thinking about all my friends in the business that are just literally out now, and they're going to be out for probably good. And it's just heartbreaking. And, you know, these billionaires that have all this money that want to run for office, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Trump, JB Pritzker, whoever. They don't realize that, you know, maybe they don't know how it is to live week to week or have to meet a mortgage or a car payment or how you're going to pay for your parents' medication because, you know, you can't afford health insurance or whatever it is. They don't think twice about shutting anyone down. It's not, the disconnect is so great, and we need to let them know one way or another that no, you can't do this to people and harm their lives. This is going to have impacts for decades past what, you know, 2022. So I just want everyone to know that this is not just some frivolous thing, a message that we're given. This actually hurt people and affects people's lives.
And James does stand up for hypocrisy. Like I said, he goes to the local county board meeting, which is at the time when I first met him was 11-1 Republican, and he'll call out anybody over anything that's done.
I'm a little bit famous for doing that myself.
Yeah, well, and that's what
to my own party.
You know, and you know, time out, and you know, let's do the reset button. Let's listen. And so James is like I said, an equal opportunist when it comes to pointing out illogical things by the government at all levels when they're doing something wrong.
For the people. I don't care if it's blue, if it's independent, if it's red. For the people, your decisions,
look, everybody knows
should work for the people.
Yes, and everybody knows that the biggest issue with COVID was the comorbidity of being overweight and out of shape. I mean, honestly, that was a huge additional problem for people who contracted COVID, not coming out of it very well. Fitness matters. And we would have been so much better off if we had, you know, when the school children showed up, gave them a pack of vitamins and made them run around the gym, you know, 15 times to exercise those lungs. We would have been or actually run around the school 5 times outside. But we didn't do that. We didn't focus on health. We didn't do that at all. So, and we should have. You're in a great field. James, I so appreciate you coming on this podcast. Todd, thank you for being here with us and providing us that perspective. We really appreciate it, and watching out over James as he goes through this process, whatever you guys decide to do. We'll be checking back in with you. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Terrific. Great.